Hey, Sophia Denison, welcome to the Tick Bootcamp podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're really excited to have you, and I'm really excited to have a special guest co-host tonight, Dan Wagner, who is not only just a cool friend of Tick Bootcamp, but he's actually starting his own podcast for one of the top Lyme disease organizations in the country. So, Dan, why don't you quickly share with folks your new podcast and who you're doing the podcast with and for whom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the really cool opportunity to be a host for the Lyme Plus podcast. It's sponsored and affiliated with Global Lyme Alliance. I do have a co-host, Kenzie Vath, and she and I will kind of tag team some of these interviews that we're wanting to do. We're really wanting to go after doctors and researchers and really get some of this really cool information out there, just kind of in the same way that Tick Bootcamp does. Tick Bootcamp was one of the first podcasts I found on my journey, and that information is just incredibly, just so beneficial. I think a lot of us that have dealt with this, we feel like we're in this just deep, dark hole, and we're trying to figure out how to get out of it. And being able to hop on here, listen to just other people's journeys and how they were able to get out of those scenarios was incredibly motivating for me. And I think that's when they asked me to host that podcast, I said absolutely, because I knew this was an opportunity for me to I'll go out there and try to help more people. So we've got a few episodes live. Kinsey and I have quite a schedule in the future as far as getting some of these interviews. A lot of them will be in person. And little hint, there might be one with Tick Bootcamp and Lyme Plus in the future. So we'll see.
Yes,
We'll see when that happens.
I'm glad you teased that because we're certainly going to want to interview you and Kenzie so that we can introduce you to our community and encourage them to listen to the great work that you guys are already doing and the great work you're going to continue to do. So thank you, Sophia, for letting us take a little tangent away from you. And let's talk about you, Sophia. I want to introduce you to our community. Because you're becoming one of the young leaders in the community. So first, why don't you tell us about some of the work you're doing with GLA, for example? So despite your young age, you are already an activist in the community. So why don't you first share with us the work that you're doing as an activist in the Lyme disease community?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I got better around 2.5 years ago, I immediately wanted to give back. And I started reaching out to every organization that helped me, or I was just, searching, trying to find places that I could help out without a medical degree. And Global Lyme Alliance right away just responded. I became an ambassador pretty quickly. And I started thinking about kind of my personal assets of where I'm at in life. I'm at a college campus in Georgia. And I started thinking about the huge community that we have here and how to reach them and how to reach these college kids that have an attention span of 7 seconds. And probably the last thing that they want to hear about is a disease that can like take you out for the rest of your life. And I started trying to figure out what I could do to get the word out here, specifically on my campus. And through that, I've met at least a dozen people on campus who have Lyme, which is crazy. But my big event that I did was in the spring, or I think it was in the spring, and I hosted a screening here at my school of the Quiet Epidemic. And afterwards, I hosted a panel with the director, Lindsay Keys, and a Lyme literate doctor in South Carolina. He came down, and a bunch of people came. It was like a learning opportunity. You could get credit for it, which my professor who helped me organize that. And it was people really from everywhere. There was professors there were students there. There's people, friends of mine, but also people I didn't know at all. And I didn't really think about the impact that it would have. It was just something that I really wanted to do because I'm passionate about spreading the word about Lyme and protecting people as well as I can. But the impact of it was incredibly emotional and incredibly just profound. The way that people responded, most everyone individually came up to me in person or like asked to go out to coffee or something to talk to me about how much it moved them in a way that I just didn't expect at all. And it just really made me realize the importance of telling your story and then even accompanying it with the film of like I can say that I was having seizures and I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk, but like I can say that, but you can't picture me in the state like that. And I realized that even through photos, it's hard to comprehend that that was really me. And then you see this amazing film, this amazing documentary, this moving documentary that actually shows people who are there and who are sick and who can't get help and the impact it has on their families and all of these, other things that are going on. And then interviewing a doctor and him telling his experiences of helping thousands of people, it just really brought it full circle and it made it really, really real, more than just like saying that it is or saying that this happened to me. So that was my big event that I hosted this year. And then this summer I worked with Global Lyme Alliance as an education intern. And I help them. They're working on creating like a list of medical professionals to help people get connected to different Lyme literate doctors. So I was helping them out with that project. But yeah, and I continue to do volunteer work with them. So
That is really cool. That is really cool. And thank you for doing all that. That is really cool stuff. So let's talk about Sophia. Let's talk about you. I want to learn. I want folks to learn about you. So, where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I'm from the suburban Chicago area, Barrington, Illinois, to be specific.
And what was your childhood like in Illinois?
Yeah, I was always a super active kid, always on the go. I loved being outside. Any chance that I could get, we had this forest kind of in our backyard, and I would always be collecting bugs and in the weeds and in the forest, climbing trees. And I also played every sport under the sun, like soccer, basketball, running. I was always always loved to be up and about. Um, so yeah, that was me.
So while you were out in the woods collecting bugs, were you aware that there might be some bugs that you didn't want to collect that perhaps could have caused you to suffer an illness?
Absolutely not. Both me and my parents, we were afraid of snakes, but we were not afraid of bugs. And no, we just had no idea, at all, at all.
So, when you were in elementary school, junior high school, and middle school, I don't know what your system was in Chicago and high school, and you were taking your health courses, at any time were you made aware of Lyme disease or any of these vector-borne diseases, and were you made aware of how you could protect yourself from getting sick from these diseases?
I mean, definitely not the chronic condition that come along with them. I think that vaguely knew that, oh, if you get bit by a tick, if you get sick from it, there's a problem. But I even kind of doubt we even knew about the rash. I don't know, I don't think I didn't know anything and my parents didn't either. There was definitely, I mean, you get letters home about lice outbreaks, but that's about it. Nothing about ticks or anything.
Talk to us about what you thought your life was going to be like, meaning when you were dreaming during your childhood about how you were going to serve the world and what profession you were going to pursue. What was your vision for yourself?
Oh, well, my earliest vision that I can remember was a zoologist. I loved animals, I loved bugs. And yeah, I really wanted to study animals because I loved the outdoors so much. And then I also was a big swimmer, a big basketball player, and so I was super into the and still am the WNBA. And I remember dreaming about being a basketball player at one point too. Um, but yeah, those were
Well,
my.
I'm happy to tell you I'm in New York, and the WNBA champions are the New York
Ah,
Liberty.
yeah,
So
first
thank,
one.
thank you for giving me an opportunity to shout out to my team.
Yeah,
Uh, and I hope all the rest of you are jealous that you do not live in the championship city of the WNBA Liberty.
very much, very much.
So, talk to us about when you first started to get sick with symptoms that you've now connected to Lyme disease.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the summer before sixth grade, which was a very unfortunate time to get sick because going into middle school, everyone just thought that I had anxiety about going to middle school and I had school avoidance. So I don't know, back then, I would always tell my mom that my stomach really hurt. Looking back, it was a lot more than that, but I feel like as a kid, you don't have that body awareness yet to kind of exactly pinpoint where things hurt or how you're feeling and what's normal. And so I just kept saying my stomach hurt. And so we went down the whole like gastroenterology path with that, to no avail. And then it was just pegged down as anxiety because my stomach hurt and I was going into middle school. But I was pretty much bedridden that whole summer. And then for like pretty much all of sixth grade, actually, I lost a lot of weight. I was having these panic attacks that were also pain attacks. So they were kind of like, what's happening? Because I couldn't really verbalize what was happening to me. Um, and yeah, and I didn't go to school for a lot of sixth grade. So there was a lot of letters sent home to my parents.
Okay, Sophia, so talk to us now what was happening after your sixth grade experience where you were either anxious and immunosuppressed and the microbes started to take off, or the microbes are taking off and it was causing you to be anxious. I mean, we always have that, chicken or egg scenario. How did that develop as you started to age after sixth grade?
Yeah, so when I was in sixth grade, I lost a lot of weight and I was having all these stomach issues and anxiety, panic, pain attack situations. And I was not really able to go to school much. And we went to at least a dozen doctors. We went to like Lurie Children's Hospital. They said I needed PTSD therapy. Um,
PTSD?
yeah, like they recommended this one like psychotherapist that was for like Vietnam soldiers who came back. Like it was crazy. They thought something was going on there. But it wasn't. So my parents took me to a chiropractor because at that point my pain was getting so bad that we went to like just for pain management issues of like, okay, how can she like, manage her pain, these pain attacks she's having. And the chiropractor immediately said, "Oh, like, have you checked her adrenals?" And he did a saliva cortisol test, and I was like so close to zero, like cortisol all day long. And so then we tried to find a doctor who would believe a saliva cortisol test because like that's kind of controversial. But we finally found a doctor in New York who would read it and would give me a prescription for hydrocortisone and also thyroid. He found that my thyroid was like zero as well. So I was put on hydrocortisone, which, if you don't know, that's the treatment for adrenal insufficiency, but they're also steroids. So I was started taking steroids end of sixth grade. And I pretty much got my life back. Right now it's very clear that they put me into some kind of remission from my Lyme. But from then on, I was pretty much normal. I couldn't go back to running. That always made me sick, was running. But I could do school. I did theater. I had a pretty normal high school experience. So it wasn't until end of high school, going into college, where my symptoms came raging back.
Okay. So let's talk about your running. What were the symptoms of your what were the symptoms of the illness that you felt after you ran?
I would just begin to feel really nauseous, and I would be kind of taken out of my body in a way like I knew something was wrong and that I shouldn't be doing that. Um, and I would just normally have to take more steroids and just like chill for the rest of the day. Um, but it was it was mainly like nausea and just like extreme fatigue afterwards, where I remember once I got better a few years ago, I started running again, and it actually made me feel good because exercise is like actually supposed to make you feel better. And I had never experienced that feeling. I probably did when I was like way younger, but I don't remember it. But I always thought exercise was just painful, and I didn't understand why people did it.
Well, yeah. So Sophia, and that's not surprising, right? Because you know, especially when you're doing a lot of aerobic exercise, it is immunosuppressive, right? Your T cell count is reduced, and as a result of the T cell count being reduced, it's likely that your microbes were taking off, and you know, of course, the fatigue was what was following that, right? So that was another signal that, of course, your doctors had missed, right? I want to talk to you a little bit about the steroids, because steroids always make me anxious when people are sharing with us that they've been prescribed steroids, because we know in many cases steroids are immunosuppressive as well. And in your case, it actually remitted the symptoms, at least for some window of time. Why do you think that's the case? You think that's the case because you're in chronic fight or flight, and because you're in chronic fight or flight, the steroids were able to calm down your HPA axis, and the modulation of the HPA axis allowed your immune system to now function because you were not in chronic fight or flight? Or is there something else that you think allowed the steroids to be helpful for you for that window of time?
Yeah, something like that. I was on a low dose of hydrocortisone, and it was a small physiological dose. And so it was exactly biomimicking as well as it could be to a normal person's cortisol, I don't know, levels throughout the day. So I'd take it 4 times a day to kind of try and simulate that adrenal access. And at that low dose, it is supposed to be anti-inflammatory. It's supposed to boost your immune system, do all of those good things. And so I think that because I was taking the low dose of hydrocortisone, like an adrenal insufficient person would, it actually helped my body kind of like flatline and like plateau just for a little bit and like hold on. But again, like if I stressed out my body too much, like if I ran or if I went through a really stressful time, then I would feel sick because I would overdo it, and my body didn't have any extra to kind of give. You know what I mean?
I do. So
Yeah.
it's not uncommon for people in the Lyme community to suffer adrenal fatigue, in part because what happens is the cortisol receptors ultimately start to fatigue, and being just like somebody who could suffer from all kinds of diseases where you have these receptors fatiguing. What's happening is adrenaline is just flowing into your system, and because the adrenaline is flowing into your system, you're in fight or flight all the time. And when you're in fight or flight, of course, you're immunosuppressed. We were talking about the HPA axis. We were talking about your cortisol receptors, and one of the analogous issues that some doctors have talked to us about is diabetes, right? And what happens with the diabetic, of course, is that their insulin receptors ultimately are no longer functioning properly, and as a result of that, they become diabetic. Well, the same thing can happen to us with our cortisol receptors, right? When they are no longer functioning properly, we have all this adrenaline pumped into our system, right? And we find ourselves in this state of chronic fight or flight, which is interesting because you were identified as being in the chronic state of fight or flight, but it looked like your doctors were diagnosing that as an emotional trigger as opposed to a physiological trigger. You know, but they were on point. They just didn't properly identify
Root cause.
where you were, right, and what was, of course, the cause of that.
Yes.
So you said, but you were in a good place between that middle school experience and now graduating from high school. You go to college, and unfortunately, the steroids aren't working anymore.
No, they are not. And I think it was a combination of a lot of things, but it was just a stressful period in my life. And on top of that, I moved states. I moved away from home for the first time. I went to the University of Minnesota. I started living in a dorm, sharing a room, sharing bathroom with like 30 other people. And it was a Big Ten school, like stressful environment in general. And I wasn't feeling good, just extreme fatigue, like body pain, and a lot of my symptoms were fluctuating, like weird. I would have different symptoms every single day. And my doctors were very much like, okay, like you're 18, you're in a stressful period of your life. We just need to adjust your cortisol, thyroid, hormones, and like you should be good. So I kind of just kept banking on that and that I would feel better. And I just needed to get through this day or get through whatever. And it just kept getting worse. So much so where like new symptoms I had never experienced started coming up, where this is where the neurological stuff comes in, where I just remember I would have these episodes, but this was the first time it happened, was I was studying in the library and I was eating a banana and watching my lecture that I'd missed because I was too sick to go. And I all of a sudden just started uncontrollably crying, like just like wailing. Um, I wasn't upset. I just was like actually just uncontrollably crying. And like my whole body went weak and I like collapsed into the table. And after like 5 minutes of this happening, then it just like left me. And I didn't feel good afterwards, but like it just like happened and it was this weird episode. They started happening more. Sometimes I was like uncontrollably laughing, which was just like creepy Joker kind of vibe. Um, and there would also be times where like I would be in lecture and I would be taking notes and then I'd like get back to my dorm to like look over them. And my notebook was like everything, all the numbers and letters were flipped, like nothing was written on the lines. Like it actually looked insane and illegible, even though I was just writing and I thought I was taking notes the whole time. So that was a crazy moment too. And that's when those episodes started getting more frequent and I like couldn't walk to get food or couldn't get to class, like couldn't shower because I like, couldn't lift my arms above my shoulders. That's when my parents were like, all right, like let's take you home, like you're really stressed, like just for like a week, and then you can go back. And I never made it back. I was at home and like finally I came home and I feel like that was when I could relax and I could kind of just be. And I actually got so much sicker because I wasn't really running on that adrenaline, or at least the little I had, you know? So yeah,
So
that was
Sophia, you know,
solid.
one of the patterns that's developing here in this podcast is, and we see this often, is you were going from one level of education. For example, when you were going from elementary school to middle school,
Mhm.
you were under a lot of stress, and it is stressful when we make those transitions, right? And of course, the transition becomes immunosuppressive, and your body's no longer able to manage the bugs that it had been managing, right? And then you get
Yes.
sick. And because it's happening at the same time of a life change, the doctors just look to the life change as the vehicle for the illness or the symptoms, rather than what they should be understanding is that the stresses from the change are what are causing the immunosuppression, which are now causing the bugs to come out of balance, right? We now have the second experience where you go from high school to college, And you now are living with, you're not living at home with your parents anymore. You're not in the community where you've grown up. You're living in a different city at a Big Ten school with, all kinds of girls that you don't know, and showering with people you don't know, and using bathrooms with other people,
Yeah.
and there are all kinds of crazy things that you never did before. And that's stressful, right? So you get
Yeah.
sick again, and now what do the doctors do? Rather than saying, hey, the stress is immunosuppressive, and now we have to look for other things. They just, they find the convenient diagnosis, which is, you have stress from from the transition, and they diagnose you with having stress rather
Yeah.
than, rather than that being, a
Mhm.
symptom, right?
Yeah.
So you're now home and you're getting sicker and sicker and sicker, right? And unfortunately, the diagnosis of the transition is a failed diagnosis. So are you now going to new doctors when you're trying to get an accurate diagnosis?
Yeah, so this is when I get up to 127 doctors. We saw I would say every specialist that we could. Like at that point I was getting so sick where like I would be recommended to a rheumatologist and we would book 4 or 5 rheumatologists, because if the first one didn't work out, then at least we would have an appointment sooner than like if we just, because we were just trying to get help as soon as possible because I was getting so sick and my parents were worried. And so yeah, we were just getting second opinions everywhere, and the second opinions were that there was nothing wrong. There was only one doctor that was a cardiologist that was like, "You're 19, you're invincible, you should be able to walk. Like this is completely not normal." And he was flabbergasted, but also said like he couldn't really help us in
So,
that way, you
yeah,
know?
Sophia, let's build that piece out. I do want to get to the 127 doctors, but
Yeah.
I want that to be bookmarked for a minute. And let's talk about how your symptoms were developing, right? I mean, give us the dirty, like how bad was it? I mean, you just
Yeah.
gave me a piece that, sent some shivers down my arms, which is I couldn't walk, right? The doctor said, you're 19, you should be able to walk. Well, give us all of that. Give us all the things that you were not able to do and how they were developing and sort of, I don't want to say progressing, digressing, and getting worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, when I came home, it was very much like decompressed, and that's kind of when everything hit me, I feel. And it and this period is very hard for me to remember. It was just I was so just in a haze. I just the days went by without me remembering them. Like I would just black out for a month.
I mean, you had bugs in your brain and you were neurologically impaired and you had brain fog, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I somehow finished my classes online. I don't know how I did that, but I did. But after that, I couldn't. Like that winter and the spring was very, very foggy for me. So it's mainly like what my mom would tell me, but I started having, and what I know now are like the beginnings of seizures. Um, but again, like doctors wouldn't say that I was having seizures because I wasn't epileptic. And I did a sleep study and they said it was fine. So, but we'll get to that. But they were, where those like laughing, crying episodes would get to the point where like that's where how it would start, but then I would go completely weak and then I would black out and like be flailing my arms and my legs and like not being able to respond or like not hearing or seeing my mom. And they would happen at the most random times. I could feel them come on like a minute before, but I really couldn't predict it. I couldn't stand up or sit up because my heart rate would go so high and it was just really uncomfortable. And it's not like the heart rate when you're running, like that like feels good, but it's like your body's like, no, don't do that. Like
So
it
Sophia, were you ever
hurts.
diagnosed with POTS?
Like unofficially, yes. I was diagnosed with tachycardia.
Okay.
So similar. I was on a beta blocker and that did kind of help mitigate the symptom, but it didn't get rid of the sensation that would come along with it. And yeah, I really wouldn't talk. I kind of went nonverbal. Like I would talk if someone asked me a question, I would answer it, but I wasn't talkative like I am right now. And I couldn't walk, like couldn't shower. At some points I like couldn't really feed myself. Just really, really lethargic. I gained a lot of weight, like inflammation. You could like on different parts of my body, like you could see my veins like popping out because I was so swollen everywhere. You couldn't see my knees, like my knuckles, nothing. My mom started bringing in my high school photo, being like, this is what she looks like, and my face was so puffy. Like I had like 3 chins. Um, just crazy physical changes that my mom knew were not normal, but like the doctors were just like, well, she gained weight, but it was not weight, it was inflammation. So
And you know, Sophia, in many cases with people with Lyme disease, you know, and I shared with you, you know, my customary co-host Matt Sabatella, he gained a ton of weight as well. And one of the things that we've learned is that fat is a place where toxins can often be stored. And one of the natural responses for your body when you're toxic is to hold on to fat so that it is a place for your toxins to be held. So in some cases it's inflammation, in some cases it's literal fat, in some cases it's both. And it's really just a response to try to protect you from being toxic, and we all know the consequences of toxicity.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think just generally my pain got really bad too. And nothing would help that. That was the crazy thing. Like
Where
no,
are you feeling pain, Sophia?
I mean, I would say everywhere, but there were definitely spots that were worse at times, like my neck area was really bad, and just like up and down my whole spine. I remember hurting a lot, and then my feet, I could only wear slippers or like sometimes gym shoes. So
So, Sophia, what are the reasons why so many people in the Lyme community are diagnosed with a mental illness rather than a physical illness, is because of migrating symptoms. And you shared with us that you had migrating symptoms, and you'd go to a doctor one time and you had symptom A, and then you'd go to another doctor or the same doctor and have symptom B, and they kept migrating.
yes.
What what were your migrating symptoms? How were they changing, and how is that causing the doctors you were treating with to react to you?
Yeah, what a nightmare. It was driving my parents crazy. My parents are both engineers and they're very analytical people. And so my mom would make all of these charts that were so helpful. She would come in to every doctor's appointment with a binder of everything that she'd collected and all my records and everything. But she would try and make these symptom charts, and it was just there was no correlation to anything. And then we tried to make like symptom charts like crossed with like my activity for the day, and then that made no sense either. It was just it looked like just a bunch of like data that someone took a paintbrush and just like splattered all over it because it made no sense. And then like we had to keep adding rows because new symptoms would come up, and then like the old ones that were like rated the most, like the worst, would just go away, and then like other ones, new ones would come that were the worst. So it made it really difficult because in our medical system, if you try and go through like the core of it, you go to specialists. And so when you have so many symptoms and they're all migrating, and sometimes this one's the worst, but then sometimes this other one's the worst, a heart doctor or like a spine doctor or a stomach doctor, they can't just treat that one symptom because sometimes it doesn't even exist. So it's impossible to try and treat symptoms like the ones that come with Lyme, where you don't have any idea how you're going to feel the next day or the next hour or the next minute that you're going to exist.
I do. So, you shared with us during, I guess, the foreshadowing piece of this doctor journey that you visited 127 doctors. Did I hear that right? 127?
Yeah, 127. And that includes, like doctors I saw in hospitals and such.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have seen 127 doctors throughout my life, and none
Now,
of them diagnosed Lyme disease.
did anyone even mention that it was a possibility?
My primary care doctor did test me, but it was the bad test that's inaccurate. So I got a Lyme test pretty early on in my journey, but it was negative and no one ever revisited it.
Because I can tell you, Sophia, the folks who are listening to this podcast who have been on a Lyme disease journey and a little bit more experience. So we have a whole spectrum of people that listen to this podcast. The newbies are going to be blessed by hearing, symptoms that they identify with that either they were recently diagnosed with or have not yet been diagnosed with. But the more experienced Lymies are going to be shaking their head and saying, you sounded limey. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
you just did, right? And I think there are two challenges here that I want to visit with you before we let Dan take you through the diagnostic journey, and that is first, death by specialty, right? You started to visit that where we have so many narrow specialties within the medical community, and there are some benefits to that. But the problem with having so many specialists is that they're looking through a very limited prism, right? And they're looking at a very limited part of your body and a very limited set of symptoms, and they can't see the cause of this, right? The other problem, of course, with having specialists is in some cases they're treating one symptom, and that takes away from the larger picture of symptomology, but we'd really need to get to an accurate diagnosis, right? So there are two, problems with, having so much specialization within at least the American medical system. But one of the things that I find really frustrating is that anytime you have somebody who has migrating symptoms, and anytime you have somebody who's being tested by, in your case, 127 different specialists, all of whom are saying your tests are not coming back positive, right, for anything, that's Lyme disease, right? That's just Lyme disease, right? We don't have a test for Lyme that's going to be accurate. And you had, I'm sure, the 2-tier test. And that test is designed to test one strain of one form of microbe that will be spit into you when you get bitten by a tick, right? That's it. And it's not particularly good at that either, because it's only testing antibodies. And when we become chronically ill, in many cases, we're not even forming antibodies in response to that, right? So when you have the picture that you've painted for us, people who have had Lyme disease, people who have the experience of Lyme disease, you see Dan constantly shaking his head because he knew, he saw the train coming, which was that you had Lyme disease. Give me your reaction to, a medical community that isn't as good at diagnosing Lyme disease as people who are in the community, lay people who are in the community.
And this is something that even I struggle with now, in that I see Lymies. Like I see people who have Lyme, and I can tell them to get a more accurate test, like go through IGeneX or whatever you want to arm in. I can tell them that till I'm blue in the face, but it takes years to build this distrust with doctors. And the way I got diagnosed will even be crazier, because like I look back and I'm like, how did I not listen to my best friend who was telling me that I had Lyme for years until I was actually on my deathbed? But like that is what it takes for people. Like you have to be so desperate to believe in like a quote unquote conspiracy theory that like doctors don't believe in and quote unquote educated people don't acknowledge. And I think that that's the really sad part about all of this, is that it takes oftentimes it takes you being on your deathbed so ill for you to finally get to this and realize that, oh my God, wait, this isn't something you even have to buy into. Like, this is real.
Yeah, Sophia, one of our favorite quotes on Tick Boot Camp comes from Phyllis Bedford from the Limelight Foundation. Of course, she's also well known because she was one of the sponsors of the Quiet Epidemic. And
Yes.
one of the things that Phyllis said to us when we interviewed her was that Lyme disease is the supermarket disease, where more people are diagnosed in the supermarket than they are in a doctor's office. And
Yes.
and and, and that's true, right? I mean, you bump into somebody who has Lyme disease or a family member of someone who has Lyme disease, and they will tell you you sound limey, right? And of course, where does our brain go, and where did your brain go? Which was, I don't want Lyme disease. I don't have Lyme disease. The doctor's not telling me I have Lyme disease. I mean, you don't want to believe that you have Lyme disease, right? So
No.
we are emotionally, um, you know designed not to want to have a disease like that, and we're going to deny it until we can't deny it anymore, which is what your situation was, right?
Yes, exactly.
So
Exactly.
Dan's now going to take you through why you couldn't deny it anymore.
Yeah. So this is kind of this for me, Sophia, in my journey was almost a part that almost made me cry when I figured out what was going on because it was just so crazy, right? You went through 127 doctors. What was the first steps to you finding out or getting the correct testing or the correct diagnosis?
Um, well, as I mentioned before, my best friend, I met her in high school. And I didn't know her before. She's actually my neighbor too. We live
Oh, no.
like a minute away from each other. But I never knew her because she was so sick her whole
Hmm.
life that I never saw her and she never went to school until high school. She came back, and when she came back, I got introduced to her through a mutual friend. But very validly so, she didn't really want to talk about being sick for most of her life. She wanted to have a normal she had never really gotten that normal school experience at all, and she wanted to have a high school experience. So I was friends with her on a very normal friends basis, and I kind of knew that she had Lyme, but also this was high school and I wasn't really sick at that time, like I told you. So, I was best friends with her, and when I started getting sick again, she and mostly her mom kept nagging us of like, okay, you have adrenal insufficiency, but do you know why? Do you know
Hmm.
why? Are they telling you why? And we were like, well, like she just is. It's like genetic, I think. Um, and really Lulu's mom was so relentless
Yeah.
in so many phone calls, texts. Like she'd see us around the neighborhood every time, was like, how's Sophia doing? Like, have you figured it out yet? Like, have you figured out the root cause? Like, have you gotten a Lyme test? Have you gotten a Lyme test? Like, I'll send you it again. Like, just keep going. And I would even call Lulu when I was so sick, when I dropped out of college, whatever. And she was like, she would listen to me, like be an ear to listen to because she had been through this. And she would be like, I'm so sorry, like, but have you gotten a Lyme test yet? And again, looking back, it's crazy. It sounds crazy that I didn't, but I've seen it happen so many times since I've gotten better again. Like you have to be desperate, unfortunately. So, it was actually when all of my doctors at the time didn't have another answer. I was seeing like a dozen, and every single one of them was like, okay, we can't help you anymore. Go to Mayo. Literally, like a dozen doctors told me to go to Mayo, like at this
Yeah.
period in my time. And we really didn't want to do that because we've heard like horror stories. But we were like, you know what? Last resort, let's do it. So we applied. And then at the same time, you were like, okay, why not? Let's send it to a Lyme test and rule it out before we go to Mayo. So we sent in a Lyme test to Hygienics. And then as we sent in the text or the test, we started researching. and we watched Under Our Skin, and we all were like, oh no. um,
Yeah.
and I had a gut feeling.
Yeah.
At this point, I sent in the Lyme test and I was like, I don't know if this is gonna rule things out. Like and then I just started looking online. I found the Facebook group and I was just looking at people and I was like, oh my God, like people have adrenal insufficiency and
Yeah.
Lyme. That I'd never
Yeah.
seen anything like that where like someone had adrenal insufficiency with something else. And just a lot of dots started connecting. And so in like the 2 week span that we were waiting for the test to come back, Lulu's mom, our neighbor, came over and we talked and we cried for
Mhm.
hours, because we knew.
Yeah.
Before we got the test back, we knew.
Yep.
Um, and we had heard, she had told us many more details about Lulu's story, and we were just like the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and then we got the Lyme test back. At the same time, we got a letter from Mayo rejecting my case.
No kidding. Crazy
So,
time. Yeah. So
so
real quick, so for maybe some people listening, what's the process for you getting the IGeneX test? What do you have to do to get that test out and get it done?
yeah, so you have to have a doctor sign off on it, which at the time I had just started seeing a naturopath, and we had asked him to sign off. There's a form online that you know fill out, and at the time I was so sick, so my mom did all of this, so I
Yep.
don't really know 100% all the details, but like she filled out the form. We like called my naturopath, and he was like, okay, like, do I have to do anything except for sign it? And we were like, I don't think so. And he was like, okay, because like you can't hold me liable because I don't know anything about Lyme disease. And we were like,
Mm.
okay, that's like totally fine. We can just get the test and read it ourselves. And he was like, okay, like as long as you're not holding me liable for any of that. I was like, we're good. So he signed off on it. Um, and and I think it was just like 2 vials of blood. It was the easiest blood work I did probably ever. So
And then how long did it take for the results to be returned to you?
I think it was about 2 weeks,
Two
2 or
weeks?
3
Okay.
weeks. Yeah.
And then you get the test results, you get basically your claim denied with Mayo. What were the results? What did you get back from IGeneX?
I wasn't CDC positive for Lyme, but I was Lyme literate doctor positive. I had 3 bars.
Yeah.
And we got the full panel. I did not have any co-infections.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So then you kind of you got to the point you're like, I've got Lyme. You kind of understand it now. What's the next step for you from there?
Yeah, so we continued to have these days where our neighbor would come over and talk to us, and she obviously had gone through this with her daughter, and they got their diagnosis, and for 2 years they went everywhere around the United States. They went
Yeah.
to Texas, they went to Utah, they went to New York, they went to Connecticut, they went everywhere trying to get Lyme disease treatment, and like went through the whole pick line, like everything, and she just kept getting worse and worse and worse and
Mm.
worse, and nothing was helping. And that's when Linda, the mom's name, found this clinic in Germany from a Facebook group. And it was a last resort for them. They were like, we have tried everything here that is reasonable. And so they packed their bags and went to Germany to get hyperthermia treatment for Lyme disease because it's not done in the United States here. And within 3 months, Lulu had made a recovery, and then within 6 months, she was completely 100% symptom free and back at high school. Um, Went to Lollapalooza, like just like
Yeah.
completely fine. Like she was never sick in her life. And I mean, now it's been, I think, like 6 or 7 years that she's been completely fine. So at the time, I think it was 5 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was just, she had, we were talking to her and everything about our options. We were thinking about starting treatment here, seeing how that went, and then like reassessing. And we sent all of my information to the clinic in Germany at the time, and they had diagnosed me with Lyme based on symptoms and myogenics test, and they were willing to treat me. And we at the time like made a decision that it was the best course of action for us to just go right away and try and save time. I was really, really bad too.
Yeah.
And we really weren't sure how much time we had left, like, to be honest.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and just based on that testimony that we had, Lulu also had no co-infections, and her case was very similar to mine. And based on the calls that we had with Germany, we just figured that that was the best option for me again.
Yeah.
So I got diagnosed in May and I went to Germany in June.
What
So
was so you were, I mean, you were probably on your deathbed at that point. What
yeah,
was like traveling to a European country when you were that sick? What was that journey like for you?
it was tough. And actually, I think no one's ever asked me that question before. It was tough. I was so nervous for that flight. It was really tough. And the flight actually ended up not being terrible, but it was like the aftermath of the flight, because you know how your legs get swollen because of the
Yeah.
altitude and stuff. And just my swelling and inflammation was so bad to begin with. And just I remember when we got, and the jet lag too, like when we got to Germany, the first like 3 days were so hard because I was in so much pain and like so swollen. I think that's the most swollen I've ever been.
Mm.
And like a lot of like foot pain because of the altitude change. But yeah, it was tough, and I just remember like being really dissociated the whole time.
Yeah. Kind of just processing. And then you get to the clinic. What's the process? Right, you get to Germany. Do you have a few days where you just kind of settle down and then go? Like, what do you do when you arrive there in Germany and go through customs and everything?
Well, we went through customs and we just got a wheelchair, so that was okay. And then there's a driver, they have drivers that from the clinic will come pick you up in Munich. So we had a driver who drove us, and that was easy. When we got there, I believe on a holiday,
Yeah.
so no one was there. um, except for the patients. So it was
Yeah.
a funny arrival. But it was nice because we had a day, and I think it was a weekend. So we had a few days to like just chill and settle in and like recover. But in Germany, again, they work very differently there. So the weekends are rest.
Yeah.
Your job is rest, and then the weekdays you get treatment. Like the doctors go home on the weekends. So I started treatment on Monday.
Yeah. And then so when you're there, you're at the clinic, you're preparing. What do you do to prepare for this? And then actually, before you answer that, do you mind sharing the name of the clinic that you went
Yeah,
to? Is that
absolutely,
okay?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner. It's Klinik St. Georg in Bad Aibling, Germany. It's a Lyme disease and a cancer hospital. So
Where do you find how can you find that online? Do they have a website and
yeah, they have a website, Klinik St. George or Clinicum St. George. I'm sure if you look that up and like Lyme treatment, it'll come up. But yeah, they have a great website. It's all in English. So
yeah. And so hyperthermia treatment, right? You're raising the body's temperature. This is something I've been wanting to talk to you about for quite a
yes,
while. It's so
yes.
interesting. So what do you do in preparation for the treatment? What is the beginning of the treatment like for you as a patient?
Yeah, so you get there and you get the schedule, and it's all in German. So
Ugh.
it's like all of these times every single day. It's like every hour they have planned for you every day. But like you don't really know what's planned because it's in German. So they're doing something at that hour. But yeah, so it's an integrated medicine hospital. So they have treatments that expand the whole wide range of every type of medicine. They have a ton of detoxification treatments. They have, like vitamin infusions as well as antibiotic infusions. They have you drinking herbal teas. They have you taking supplements. Um, they have like Reiki, massage, like acupuncture. They really have everything there,
Yeah.
which is amazing. And you're supporting every aspect of your body all the time while you're there. But before hyperthermia, they make sure to cleanse you as much as possible because there's going to be this massive die-off. And as you know, die-off of Lyme bacteria is really, really awful. So,
Yeah.
and when you're killing it all at once in like a few hours, it can be really, really intense. So, um, what they do is they do a hydrocolonic, like 24 hours before. So like they clean out your colon, you are empty with a capital
Yeah.
E. And like from then on, you're fasting. And then just to be sure, they have you like drink that yellow like quart of like, I don't even know what it is, but it just cleans you out even more. And so they have you drink that at night, and then you go to sleep and you wake up at like 5 a.m. to a nurse giving you an enema. So even
Mm.
more, like literally nothing's in you, but they're
Yeah.
just making sure. They're just making sure. So you are so empty. I will never be that empty again in my life. And then you go into hyperthermia, you're asleep. So what happens, they put you out, and what happens in the chamber is they heat you up to 107.25 degrees while monitoring your levels and giving you lots and lots of water because you're losing a lot of water. And they're also giving you heated antibiotics to kill the Lyme disease. So the theory behind it is that at that temperature, the biofilms can melt off of the bacteria and the antibiotics can penetrate all the bacteria, including the bacteria in your brain, in your joints, in your muscles, in your bones, because the biofilms are off of it. So there's an
Yeah.
interesting story about how the doctor discovered it as well, if you're interested in hearing that. But
Yeah. And then so I'm thinking your body's at this temperature. How do they, and then how long do you stay at that temperature? And then how do they protect your brain from that heat?
yeah, well, obviously they give you all of the risk beforehand. But if you're traveling to Germany to get this treatment, it's likely a last resort
Yeah.
option. And so a lot of the risks are not worse than like what's actually like actively happening to you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we made that decision. But you're in Germany, they heat up your head as well because they think it's
Mhm.
important to, especially with neurological Lyme, to have the heat on your head.
Yeah.
But they're monitoring every level. You're making sure that you're okay. The 107.24, they keep you up there for as long as possible. For me, I think it was like around 20 minutes, but like for most of the time, you're around 106.
Okay.
And so they'll try and get you as high as they possibly can. And like the max would be 107.24, but that's how they do that.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And then how many hypo or hyperthermia treatments do you do when you're there in Germany? How big of a break do you have between treatments? What is that like?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a bit about the aftermath of the treatment. So you wake up in the ICU and you're parched beyond belief. You lose about 2 liters of water, I believe.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and they're giving you fluids through an IV, but you're so thirsty. So you start just like downing gallons of water. And hopefully it's not TMI, but I did tell you how empty I was. And afterwards, the amount of bile that comes out of you is insane.
Yeah.
And it looks toxic too.
Yeah.
Your body just like goes through this purge, and my mom and I both, it was so emotional because it was like physical evidence in a way, like that something died and like something was in me that shouldn't have been. So
Yeah.
that was a huge moment. And then so that was like the biggest kind of detox that your body does. But then you go through another week of detox treatments there. So then every hour you're doing a different treatment. So it's like we do ionic foot baths, infrared saunas. They do this treatment called PAPIMI treatment, which is like electromagnetic waves to like help balance your nervous system. They do mitochondrial support, mitobox, blue light therapy, laser IVs. You're getting like you're doing all these treatments, but then on top of it they're like changing your IV like every hour or two with different like chelation, different vitamin, like high dose vitamin C, vitamin D, like all these things to support. And so you're just doing detox, massages, all of the above. And so then you're doing that for a week, then you go into hyperthermia again, do the colonic, all the cleanses, and then you do hyperthermia again. They do it again just to like make sure that there's not an ounce of it left. The
Yeah.
first one should be sufficient,
Hmm.
but they do it again just to make
Yeah.
sure. So they do it again, and it's so much less hard on your body the second time. Wake up, you're still parched, but I like didn't have that purge at all. And I woke up, well, I woke up the first time, and like for the first time in my life I didn't feel body pain. It was insane.
Yeah.
It was really insane. And it kind of came back as you're detoxing, but that first wake up, my brain like felt light, and I could connect my thoughts, and then I'm starting to have conversations again. I'm starting to be able to walk to some of my treatments. Second hypothermia, a lot better. Detoxing is going a lot better. I'm actually feeling like the good effects of the detox instead of like feeling like it's kind of doing nothing. Um, and then finally in week 3, you do a plasma apheresis treatment, which is another all-day treatment. Like put in a line, and they, take out your clean your plasma. And so that's a tough treatment. It's just like an all day kind of, you just feel gross.
Yeah.
But it really accelerates the detoxification process, so it's so important. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the last hurrah, at least for me. But I again only had Lyme. If you have co-infections, there's other treatment programs that you can do. You can add on weeks. I also wasn't on long-term antibiotics at any point because I didn't get diagnosed until I was 19.
Yep.
So my gut was relatively speaking, like in a much better place than people who have been, on long-term Lyme treatment. But there is another week you can add to the treatment program that helps revitalize and rebuild your gut microbiome, which I've heard amazing things about as well. But we decided not to do that since I was in an okay place with that. But they send you home with, it's like 4-page long, 12-week treatment plan. And it's just all of these supplements and Chinese herbs, and it's all catered exactly to your record there and what they think you need. And you're taking like a whole handful of supplements 4 times a day. But it's beautiful. And yeah, so that was my Germany journey.
Yeah. You said your mother went with you on this trip? So what
Yes.
was it like as like a caretaker, like your mother being with you? What's the experience like for her when she's there? Did she have accommodations? Like what do they do for the people that come with patients?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's rooms and my mom and I slept in the same room. It's not like a hospital room in the United States. Like you have bathroom, shower, or like sometimes there's a bath in there, and then you have a little balcony, and like for the outside, there's like a little backyard area too.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, we both slept in the same room in different beds, and there's a cafeteria in the hospital. They had amazing food, honestly. It was so healthy. And obviously food is medicine, so it was all catered to the patients. And yeah, the caregiver experience, my mom made so many friends
mm,
that we still talk to. And you know, that was the first time in my life where I was in a place where everyone knew Lyme disease and I didn't have to explain anything. Like if I couldn't come down for dinner, I didn't have to say anything more. Like everyone literally felt what I was feeling, and vice versa. And so to have those kind of instant connections with people where like you understand each other on such a deep level is really profound and something I'll never forget, really. And there's only been a few other times now that that's happened, and it's been with GLA, like at the gala, where everyone in that room like has an understanding and like an empathy for that. And then the other time was like at that screening that I did was like afterwards, like everyone like had this understanding and this bond. And
mm.
so and all the other caregivers that were there, I definitely felt that in their perspective, like from a caregiver of like my mom met other moms that had her life experience. So it was really, really great, actually.
Yeah. So I'll probably hand it back over to Richard in a second, but so getting to the point, you're back in the United States, you're on your supplement plan. How do you feel? What's going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I came back. My dad picked us up from the airport, so he hadn't really talked. Well, we talked on the phone, but hadn't seen me in a month. Um, and I talk both their ear off for an hour in the car coming home from the airport. And like my mom was saying, like my dad kept like looking in the rearview mirror of like who is she?
Oh,
Oh, because I was talking so much. And I remember when I got home, I'm a very passionate person. I have a million like projects I'm doing all the time and like things I want to do. And I got home and I remember like sitting on the couch that I sat on for like years of just being sick. And I was having all these thoughts of like, I should like go play piano. I should read this book. I should crochet this. I should read this magazine. I should help my mom cook dinner. Like I just kept having all these thoughts. I was like, oh, like there's so much to do. Like this is crazy. And yeah, so but really like the number one thing they tell you is like if you don't take any of the supplements, if you don't do anything else that we say, do this one thing and it's rest. Like you
mm,
need to rest for 6 months. You
mm.
need to rest.
Yeah,
So I didn't go to school. I stayed home. And I just like really took care. Like if I really wanted to go on a walk, I would like walk 500 meters and back. Like
yeah,
not anything like a stroll, even though I would want to walk, like I really, really took it slow, even though again I wanted to, but just like really not pushing myself
yeah,
past anything. So it was a very just like being really, really careful. And but I did like start to do things that I wouldn't had ever dreamed of doing. Like I went to Wisconsin to go visit my friend like 2 months after. And I stayed with her for a weekend. I really like didn't think I'd ever live without my parents again. So that was
yeah,
just crazy and it happened so soon. But recovery was not linear. And it was not a magic fix. It's not a magic pill. It's hard work. And I mean, like, I had some seizure episodes like when I came back, and they were so disheartening. Like, I was like, oh my God, I still have Lyme, I'm still sick, like, this didn't work. And really, Lulu and her mom, I don't know what I would do without them. Like, they, again, like, they had gone through this, and like whenever I would start saying that or like be down about it or whatever, like, they were like, nope, you're getting better, you're getting better, it's working, it already worked, like, you already did it, like, don't even worry about it. So they were so encouraging, like, through all of those tough moments of recovery. But eventually, like, the good days became more than the bad, and then the bad ones kind of just faded. So
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm gonna hand it back over to Rich. Rich, you're up.
Thanks, Dan. So, Sophia, one of the things we learned from Ali Hilfiger and almost every guest since then is that when you go on this healing journey, you build a personalized toolbox with the things that are helpful to you so that you can maintain a healthy lifestyle and not find yourself in a position where you may have a relapse. So talk to us about how you built your toolbox on this journey and what your toolbox contains.
yeah, what a great question. I think definitely being at college, it's hard to maintain that toolbox, with just the demands of living here. But definitely something that I've learned is to never take your health for granted. So it is always my number one priority. But definitely just stress is the enemy. Like, it really, really is. And it sounds simple, but like, really just trying to mitigate my stress as much as possible is really important for my health. And whenever I'm feeling stressed out, to just take my time and get organized and like do things to like calm myself down. I also still take a lot of supplements. That makes me feel better. It makes me maintain my health even when I'm not getting, again, I'm in college, not getting, don't have enough time for like good meals. It definitely really helps just maintain that level of nutrition that I know my body needs. But yeah, and also just listening to my body when I need rest to rest is super important, and to just like not keep pushing, you know? Um, but I definitely have more things that I do when I go home. Like, we have an infrared sauna at home, like back in Illinois. Again, obviously at college don't have one of those, but definitely when I get home, I do saunas, and I make sure to like to keep moving my body too. I'm so grateful that I can move. And keeping up my fitness is a huge value of mine now that I'm better. I feel like maintaining my fitness is a gift, and I love to practice that. So whether that's even just stretching or doing mobility things, that's definitely a priority as well for me.
Okay, so your toolbox includes tools to de-stress your life, right? And then we did learn from the from you as you were sharing your journey that you had stress triggers each time before you had gotten sick. So you've learned how to self-soothe and how to de-stress. Your toolbox includes tools to rest, meaning showing yourself grace, and when your body is telling you that you're tired or you're fatigued, you are resting. You shared with us that you're also making sure that you are eating as cleanly as you possibly can, even as a college student, taking supplements to make sure that you have all your nutritional needs met, even if the traditional college diet isn't as clean as you would like it to be. And then, of course, movement, right? And you have all the elements of movement. So you're dealing with rest, you're de-stressing, and emotional health, movement, and diet. Those are the foundations of the Sophia toolbox.
Definitely.
All right,
Yes.
perfect. They're beautiful. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about the lessons that you've learned on this journey. And I'd like you to share with our listeners, because I shared with you, you have a whole spectrum of listeners. Some people are very new to this community. Some people are here a little bit longer. So I want you to talk to the new people in the community and let the new people know, as now a wise, older, person who is now succeeded on this journey. What would you want them, what would you wanted your younger self to know about this journey before you started? And please share that with the new people on this podcast.
Definitely what comes to mind is trusting yourself and trusting your body. Your body is the most clear communicator that it gets. And I think that a lot of times medical professionals have taught me to ignore my body and to just look at numbers. And I remember this moment in my journey when I came back from college and I was laying on the floor because I had like collapsed and I couldn't get up. And my mom came over to help me and I just started to break down. And I kept telling her there's something seriously wrong with me. There's something so wrong with me. Like I've been sick this whole time and there's something really, really wrong. Like this is like way more than we think it is. And that was the first moment where I felt like I had expressed that or even admitted that or even told the truth to myself about that. And I've known it. I've known it my whole life. I knew it when I was younger. I knew it before I even went to college. And I think if I just would have like trusted that that I was sick, even though people were telling me that I was fine or that I was getting better or this new medication would help, I think that I wish that I would have like stopped ignoring myself, you know?
So, we here at Tick Boot Camp call our feelings our onboard diagnostic system. Just like a car has an onboard diagnostic system, so do we, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things you shared with us earlier in the podcast, and I wanted to come back to this, is you said you didn't have a language to describe what you were feeling. You said that you didn't have strong body awareness. So talk to us about how you developed this body awareness and how you developed the language that you needed to describe what was going on, so you could give your mom and your practitioners feedback on what was working and what was not working, because there has to be an open loop. You can't have a closed loop where practitioner is giving you something and they're assuming it's working when in fact it's not, because we are bio individuals. We do have a very diverse set of of microbes in our system. We have a unique microbiome, right? So what may work for Rich is not going to work for Dan and may not work for Sophia. So we have to give feedback to our doctor. So what would you recommend to the people who have not yet developed the body awareness that you have and have not yet developed the language that have, so that they can be better partners with their practitioners?
You know, it's so easy to say to get into your body and to, body scan and to really, really get to know yourself on that intimate of a level, like of meditation and just figuring out like how your body's actually feeling and where your pain is and all of that, all of that. It's easy to say to do that. It's another thing entirely when you're sick and you feel like your body's failing you, and you feel like your body's your enemy, and you feel like everything you've ever wanted is taken away from you because of your body. That's the last thing you want to do, is to get to know your body. You hate your body because it won't, you don't even just hate the way it looks, like you hate the way that it ruined your life. So body awareness when you're sick, in my opinion, is nearly impossible. And I think that that's also something where it's hard to even describe symptoms when they're mild, because like they aren't until they take over your life where you actually notice them, because they're actually stopping you from doing what you want to do. And so I think that the best advice that I ever received, and it was from my friend Lulu, and this was even before I had Lyme, was that I was describing to her this feeling of like hating my body because it stopped me from everything that I ever wanted. And she gave me the advice of that, your body is your only safe space at the end of the day. Like it's gotten you this far, and it will keep keeping you safe. And you have to rely on the fact that it's gotten you this far, even though it's you don't feel good right now. It's always trying to go back to that balance. And there's something else that's stopping it from doing that, but it's so, so strong. Like your body is so, so strong, and it does want the best for you. And I think practicing your belief in that your body actually is on your side, even when you think it's all against you, that was the biggest like transformation that I've experienced, is framing your body as your friend and not your enemy. I think that came so much easier with a diagnosis, because it felt like something outside of my body that I like had to fight. But again, like even when you don't have a diagnosis, believing that there's this sickness, there's this illness, there's this bug that it's trying so hard to fight, and it fights every single day for you even when you don't even ask it to, is so important. And placing your trust in that, I think, has helped me get inside my body more, even when that's a really, really scary thing to do.
So when you were talking with Dan, you were talking about disassociation, right? I think we should build that up, because I think you're very powerfully talking about, I think one of the most important elements of a healing journey, right? And disassociation is when you begin to leave your body, right? It's almost like like you're watching your body as if it is not your body, right? And it makes sense that people want to leave their body, because the body is a painful place for them when they are chronically ill. But of course, the problem with the spirit leaving the body, right? Because your body is the container for your spirit, is that your spirit has to co-heal with your body. You cannot heal if you're not in your body. You can't heal if you're not working together, and you cannot heal if you don't have faith in your body doing what it's supposed to do, and your immune system doing what it's supposed to do, right? And when we're separated, we're making it harder for our spirit to heal and harder for our body to heal. So I really thought it was beautiful the way you were describing how you had to get back into your body so that you can work together and heal. So give us more of a detailed analysis of what it was like to disassociate, and what allowed you to get back into your body so that you can heal together.
Yeah, it's that trust that I'm talking about, of trusting your body, and trusting that it's trying to get back to balance, and trusting that this is something that it's fighting and it's not you. And it was never yours. And that's not you. That's not, Lyme disease or whatever it is, like whatever is making you sick, like isn't you. And that you shouldn't be afraid to be in your body, because it's supporting you, it's fighting for you, it's being strong for you, again, like even when you don't ask it to,
Yeah, I would argue that it's not only, look, it's vital for you to be in your body to heal. It's
Yeah,
not that you have to
absolutely,
do it, you have to be
absolutely.
in your body to heal, right? And it's not your body that's betraying you, it's the bug that's eating your body that's betraying you, right? And we have to distinguish, even though we don't feel good in our body, what is causing us to be sick are the bugs, or in your case, that bacteria that was causing you to be sick, not your body itself. And you and your body have to work together to kill those bugs.
Yes, and I'm a huge in Germany, one of the doctors recommended me Joe Dispenza's book,
Yep.
um, You Are the Placebo, and I'm a huge follower and believer in his all of his theories, and I believe that he is a huge reason why I recovered so quickly and the way that I did. And if you don't know him, definitely check him out. But in short, like his theory of well, not, it's not even a theory, it's a proven idea that your mind and your body and your spirit are all connected. And just as your body symptoms tell you something's wrong, your mind can tell your body, can talk to your body and tell it to heal. And practicing the positive thinking and the positive thoughts and the healing energies and the healing thoughts really, I believe, accelerated my healing journey exponentially. Those positive thoughts, those healing energies were very present in Germany. All of the doctors were constantly, it was like that experiment, that famous experiment where like you talk to a plant and you tell it all these negative things, and you talk to a plant and you tell it all these like awesome healing things, and the plant like grows bigger when you tell it positive things, and then the one dies when you tell it negative things. Um, in Germany, just all the doctors ever say is like, you're just sunshine, you're sunshine, like you're shining, like you're so much better, like you should be so proud of yourself. Like they're just always telling you all of these things, and the patients are just so excited to be there and excited to heal and excited to see you every day, and that excited that we're both getting better, and just it's such a positive healing environment. And then coming home to like my parents and to Lulu's family, of like, they, even when I had setbacks, of like just all of these positive, like loving, healing energies. And it helped me get in a headspace like to have my mind truthfully tell my body that as well, and to believe in my body and to believe in myself, that it would heal. And um and yeah, again, just like practicing, because again, like your body can be sick and it's telling your mind that it's sick, but you can also do the opposite. Your brain can tell your body that you're healing, and it will help you heal.
All right, Sophia. So now we got the next piece of the Sophia toolbox, right? Which is going to be mindfulness and belief,
Yeah.
right? And understanding the importance of gratitude and understanding the
Mhm.
importance of positivity on the toolbox. So I just want to review the toolbox because it's really important that we have all these pieces in the toolbox, because I believe the most important part of a toolbox is mindset. I believe the most important part of healing is belief, right? And I know that's triggering for a lot of folks, and we can talk more about, in some future videos that we're going to do, what belief is and how to get belief. But your toolbox includes mindset, nutrition, movement, um, uh, self-soothing from stress, sleep and rest, right? That's the Sophia toolbox. And you continue to use all of those toolbox to maintain your health so that you don't have really relapse.
Absolutely. Yes.
Perfect and
Yes.
beautiful. I love that toolbox that you've developed for yourself. And one of the things that we should share with everybody who's listening to this podcast is every single person, in order to be able to not only heal but to maintain their health, is going to build their own toolbox. And when you have that toolbox built, that allows you to have a very healthy lifestyle. And again, we have to be careful about making sure that we're not doing things, at least too often, that will cause us not to maintain our health. Like we shouldn't be going out and getting liquored up too often. We shouldn't be staying up late with the boys or the girls or whoever it is that we're hanging out with. But I think the beauty of this is once you're in the maintenance phase of your healing journey, and you understand your body and you understand your mind and you understand your brain, you can sometimes take these little trips where you're doing some of the fun stuff that you would like to do, but you don't want to be too extreme about it. But then knowing that you have tools that you can come back to and put yourself in a position where you're going to, regain the balance that you need to retain your health.
Hmm. Absolutely.
All right, so now let's talk about transformative nature of this experience, right? Because one of the things that you needed to heal is to make sure that you understood that your body was always working for you. But another thing that's important to healing, and we've seen this with all of the people that we've talked to on this podcast, is to understand that this experience is working for you, that there was a purpose to all of this. And yes, it sucks, and nobody really wants to go on this journey. And it's just a terrible thing, especially for a young person like you, Sophia, to have to go on this journey. But you're now a better and different person as a result of going on this journey. You're a more pure version of yourself, and you now understand yourself in a way at a very tender age about who you are. So talk to us about how you now know who you are and what you've been put here on earth to do.
Well, I mean, what I immediately did when I came back from Germany was I tried to get involved with every Lyme organization I possibly could without having any medical degree. And I know I said that at the beginning of this podcast, but it does come back to that.
It
Full
does. That's
circle
why
moment.
we are coming full circle.
And you know, it really comes from, first of all, how much my mom has done for me as a caregiver and how much she's sacrificed to get me better in every way possible, like her career, or her emotional health, her physical health, everything. Um and I will just forever be grateful for that and for that support. But it also comes down to the kindness of a neighbor and of a friend. And I do believe, again, I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and there's a reason why I was healthy in high school and I met Lulu and we became best friends. And she's also my neighbor, and she also knew all of this stuff going down, like when I got super sick again, and she stayed by my side, and all my friends revolved around her too. And so her friends too had stuck by her when she was sick, and so they weren't leaving me either. And I was incredibly blessed with an incredible support system of people who didn't leave my side when I was sick. And when I got better, I realized the importance of spreading the word and to be kind and to look out for people, especially with something with Lyme that not a lot of people know about, and there's not enough people talking about it. And quite literally, just because her and her mom cared and were friends with me, like that's why I'm here. And I take that with me wherever I go, that kindness. And if I can spread the word in a way that they did to just someone else, I feel like that's my life is complete. And what's crazy is that I know I've done that
Well,
even
you've
in
started to
these
do that, but you
years,
haven't done it because
but
your mission is much greater than the successes you've already had, right? And this is a disease that is beatable, and it's a disease that's preventable with proper education. Well, first awareness and then education, right? And it's what causes me to have hope, because when we first started doing this podcast, I was always very sad after every episode, right? But what's really made me lose that sadness and gain the hopeful mindset that I have about Lyme disease is people like you, Sophia, right? Because what happens is is that this disease makes the mistake of attacking somebody like Sophia. And then Sophia gets to the other side of it, and now this disease has an unbelievably powerful enemy in Sophia. And she's going to continue to scale all of the gifts that she has and all the knowledge that she has and all the information she has, so that the entire world is going to know about this, and they're going to avoid coming in contact with this disease. And when they do come in contact with this disease, they're going to have tools that will allow them to recover quickly, right? Because your journey was shorter than most, but it was largely shorter than most because you got a relatively fast diagnosis, and you were able to get treatment that did not destroy your body first before you were able to rebuild it, right? And it was only because of the blessings that you just described of the social support that you had. And yeah, some people would call it a coincidence. As a Christian, I don't believe there are coincidences, but just growing up in a community with another person that went on this journey and had the same exact strain of the same exact disease because she lived in the same exact neighborhood and was
Yes.
likely being
Yes.
bitten by the same ticks that you were
Yes.
being bitten by, right?
Yes. Yes. And no, exactly what you said. And yeah, what I meant by that I've already done it is that like I sent people like helped diagnose people and sent them to Germany and they have gotten better and made a full recovery and they're normal. And just every time I do that, it's just like something feels fulfilled in me that I can never really quite put into words. And again, it's just like someone saved my life like that. And if I can continue to do that in any way that I can, that is when I feel the most fulfilled. And so I was so happy and grateful that I was, asked to be on this podcast because this is genuinely what I love most in the world and will take priority over everything. And I also believe, again, like, I don't believe that any of that was a coincidence at all. Um, the crazy strain of events that happened for me to meet Lulu and to even just have that, and then she ended up literally saving my life is insane. And yeah, and I think again, like if I can cross the right people's paths and just keep talking about it, it's what I'm here to do.
Amen. So you've been kind enough to be with us for almost 2 hours. So we're going to give you back to your family after Dan asks you the final question on this episode of the Thick Boot Camp podcast.
Sophia, what are
Yeah.
you most pumped and passionate and excited about in your future? What do you got going on?
Ooh, oh my gosh, that's such a great question. Um, God, I have to think. You know, I just feel so grateful to be here every day. And I really like, and I've been told this by people that don't even know my Lyme story, but like I really do take every day by the reins.
Yeah,
Um, and I continue to be blessed enough to live in the moment and to be present. Um, and that's something I wasn't able to do. I was always thinking about, oh, like I can't make this plan because I don't know how I'm gonna feel in an hour when I get coffee with this person, or I don't know how I'm gonna feel in a month when I go to this concert. And now I'm blessed enough to be able to think about the future in a positive way and to make plans, but also like be spontaneous and be in the present. And again, it's just been such a blessing to just live and be present and live in the moment and also make plans and not feel stressed out about them. And, college is a very turbulent time. I feel like everything's changing all the time.
yep,
And it's stressful, it can be stressful at times, but I'm excited to see, like where my career goes and how Lyme incorporates into all of it because it always does. It is the biggest part of my life and it always will be. And I'm excited to, you know, keep fulfilling that purpose, keep spreading the
yeah.
word and seeing, where that takes me.
That's a beautiful thing. Rich, I can relate a little bit to I'm a Christian as well, and having gratitude every single morning I wake up, I say thank you, Lord, for another day. I've done that since I've been 16, but after I've recovered from Lyme, it's so much sweeter. It's just
Yes.
it's a very beautiful thing, and just starting your day with gratitude, and I'm excited for every day too. So I can definitely relate with you on that, Sophia. So
Yeah,
Right.
really, really, as cliche as it sounds, like genuinely.
yeah, oh yeah, it's like I have like a new lease on life. It kind of feels like so.
No, absolutely,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, thank
awesome.
you both for sharing your beautiful stories with us. So first, Dan Wagner, I have to thank you for being a co-host. You've been wonderful. And I know the folks who are listening to this podcast are going to start tuning into the work that you're doing with the Global Lyme Alliance, because as awesome as you are today, I'm sure you're going to be even more awesome on your podcast. So thank you for joining us and beginning to share your great work with our community. And Sophia, thank you so much for sharing your story and being as vulnerable as you were. This is an unbelievably powerful story, and the lessons that you taught and the way that you are now showing people how to build a toolbox to help themselves not only define their illness, treat their illness, but then of course maintain their health was really, really powerful. So thank you for sharing all that with our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for your amazing and thoughtful questions.